Joe Ward has finally returned to Derby County's starting 11, and what a performance it was from the right wing back. Now obviously for Derby County and for Joe Ward, it's been a very difficult few years. Now Joe Ward joined Derby County back in the League One campaign where we got promoted. Suffered some really freak injuries, especially the one with the fat pad on his ankle. You then have all the situations regarding last season where he just couldn't stay fit. Now, ultimately, many people had written him off. I'm not saying that I hadn't thought about Derby County moving him on, but ultimately, he put in an excellent performance yesterday, and hopefully, we can see much more of that. Now, for Joe Ward, it's been a very turbulent couple of years at Derby County, and as he heads into I think it's the final year of his contract now, he's really started to show Derby County what he is capable of. Now, there's been a lot of discussions about Joe Ward over the course of the last 12 to 18 months, and in my opinion, rightfully so. He's not been available, he's not been able to play, and ultimately it's the same sort of conversation that we had about Kane Wilson when Kane Wilson moved on to MK Dons. It falls in that, is he ever going to be fit enough to play a run of games? And ultimately, he's now going to get the opportunity to prove that. With Max Johnson getting injured and being out till December, Joe Ward has got a star opportunity to shine for Derby County. Now, if you have not done so already, make sure you hit the like button, hit that subscribe button, and turn on that notification bell. But let's get into it. Now, Joe Ward's return to the starting 11 came after nearly a year out of the starting 11, and it's been amazing to see, genuinely. It's been very, very good to see. And I'm delighted to see Joe Ward back on the football pitch because I genuinely believe there is a quality footballer in there. Now, obviously, I think he's just turned 30, so he is obviously coming towards the back end of his career. But ultimately, if he can get the opportunity now to become a starter in this Derby County team under John Eustace, there is absolutely no reason why he shouldn't be. And if he can put in some incredible performances, it also eases the pressure on Max Johnson returning to fitness. Now, for me, I don't want to get a little bit ahead of myself after talking about the performance versus Stoke City, because ultimately it is a Stoke City. It wasn't Stoke City, it was Sheffield United. And obviously I don't want to get ahead of myself too much because it is just one game. There's a lot of work still to do, and he is part of that work, and he will always be part of that work because he's now part of the squad. And I genuinely believe that yesterday was probably one of his best performances in a Derby shirt. When you look at the quality of opponent, which is much better than he ever faced in League One. I think if you go back to the game against Burnley, I think it was around December last year, he was phenomenal in that game as well. But his set-piece delivery was second to none. It was unbelievable. He was very good on a defensive standpoint. He was getting the ball in the box. He was creating opportunities for his teammates. And I genuinely believe that you can't sort of take away from that quality that he has at right wing back of swinging a ball into the box, of putting the ball on the head of those defenders for me. Because ultimately, don't get me wrong, I'm not going to turn around and say that Joe Ward necessarily caused huge amounts of problems when it comes to crosses and things like that in the game. But just having that knowledge of knowing that if Joe Ward is going to put a ball in the box, it's probably going to hit someone on the head. It sort of causes problems for defenders. Now, I don't think that Sheffield United were great yesterday, not by any stretch of the imagination. Don't get me wrong, I don't actually think they were that bad either, to be honest, but I think by far we were the dominant force. And I think a lot of that comes from having two fullbacks that were willing to put a ball in the box. Now, don't get me wrong, it isn't Craig Forsyth of old where he's going to go and put 10, 11 crosses in the box, where he's going to get right up to the byline and things like that. But having Joe Ward on the other side, who will take a touch and just whack it in the box just for the fun of it, I think is massively important for Derby County. Now, I think it's also good that in this sort of system, I think if you look at sort of the back five we had yesterday, with Joe Ward on the right, Langas, Sanderson, Clark and Forsyth, I think it opens up that door for Joe Ward to sort of extend further. It gives Brereton Diaz the opportunity to come centrally a little bit more and offer a little bit of support to Morris, to Clark, to Ozo and things like that. And that's where I think Joe Ward sort of thrives, with all that space in front of him. Now, don't get me wrong, I do have a little bit of an opinion on Joe Ward when it comes to his delivery, which I think is phenomenal, but there's many of occasions where he gets the ball sort of 2-3 yards ahead of the halfway line and he'll just fucking whip it in the box. Now, for me, take a couple of touches, gain some ground. Now, don't get me wrong, yes, that can cause problems, and there can obviously be defenders that get in the way, win the ball, and things like that. But for me, where he's delivering the crosses from doesn't really give you a great opportunity of scoring goals. Yes, you will get a couple of opportunities from it, with defenders missing headers and things like that, and flick-ons. But for me, if he goes and takes 3, 4, 5 more yards towards the edge of the box, puts the ball in the box, then we've got a much bigger opportunity of scoring. And ultimately, that is what you need to do in football. You need to score goals, because that's how you win games. And yes, he did pick up an assist yesterday, direct from a set piece. I think if any of you have watched Derby County this season, which I believe most of you probably have, set piece delivery hasn't been great for me. And I do think that that's something that we need to work on, especially for when someone like Joe Ward isn't in the team. Because when Max Johnston is back fit, Max Johnston will probably take that position back. And I just don't necessarily think he has that delivery of a ball. Now, there is a world where Joe Ward goes on an incredible run of form and Max Johnston can't get back in the team once he's back fit. And that would sort of be brilliant for everybody, because having a player of the quality of Max Johnston on the bench is brilliant. Like, you look at the players that we've got on the bench yesterday: Ryan Brewster, Ebu Adams, Caden Jackson, Lars Jorgen Selverson, Blackett Taylor, Vyman, Niambi, Danny Bart. It's very, very good quality. Now, don't get me wrong, the likes of Ebu Adams, the likes of Caden Jackson are definitely sort of those players that you bring on to sort of hold the fort down. And I think that's what Derby did yesterday. But it's an incredible amount of quality to bring off the bench and really sort of scrap towards those victories and things like that, which I think is exactly what we did yesterday. Now, you can't sort of take away the influence that Joe Ward had for me yesterday. I think he was brilliant. 89% pass completion, 16 of 18, created 3 chances. I'm going to assume that most of them came from set pieces. Had 2 defensive contributions, 35 touches, 1 was in the opposition box, had a successful dribble, 3 passes into the final third, 43% accurate crosses, 75% accurate long balls, was never dispossessed. He made a block, a clearance, a headed clearance, and 3 recoveries, and won 2 of his 5 duels. The only duels that he lost were in the air. Now, I think that Joe Ward was phenomenal yesterday. You can let me know your thoughts on that down in the comments, but I think he was a big part of Derby County picking up 3 points. Obviously, Derby County scoring after 25 minutes from a Joe Ward set piece was massively important to Derby County picking up 3 points. Now, if you have not done so already, make sure you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and turn on that notification bell. Let me know your thoughts on this down in the comments, because I know Joe Ward has been very much out in the cold over the course of the last 12 to 18 months with those injuries that he's picked up and things like that. But he looks as if he's fit, he looks sharp, he looks ready to go. And I think a 90-minute spell yesterday, he was one of Derby County's best players on the pitch. But you can let me know your thoughts on that down below. If you haven't done so already, hit like, hit subscribe, and turn on that notification bell. And I'll catch you in the next one. Bye-bye, guys.